Welcome back to another segment of Lady Mogul Talk, and this segment is in partnership with the HBCU Experience Movement. Today we have another wonderful guest, Chelylaina Fultz, and I'm excited about her business, especially as I think about the future and what I want this particular big event to look like. So let me get into her bio. She may have been raised as a small town girl, but she always had big city dreams with an entrepreneurial spirit and a passion for acting and media. Since 2012, she has planned weddings and events nationally and internationally. This led her to create the Cheylaina Fultz Talk Show, a podcast that shares the stories of women who have overcome challenges and evolved into amazing entrepreneurs and leaders. In 2020, Chelylaina launched the HBCU Legacy Fashion, a boutique of classic HBCU kids' clothes that extends the legacy of HBCUs. You know, I'm all about that as an HBCU grad. Also, the effort is to increase enrollment rates through her HBCU Legacy Scholarship, which is a nonprofit 501c3 that provides monetary support to minority students. And as an entrepreneur, she also wears the hats of wife, mom, and she is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So help me give a warm virtual welcome to Chelylaina Fultz. I am so excited to have you here today.
Hello. Thank you so much, Avery, for having me.
Yes, I'm excited. And reading your bio, so I'm not engaged yet, but it might happen in the near future. So I'm excited to just learn more about your business and also share for those who are interested in getting into the wedding space. As a little girl, I really thought that I was going to be a wedding planner. So I'm going to live vicariously through you today.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yes, I was like, and I've always just been fascinated with just wedding planning in general. I don't know why. I just want to plan somebody's wedding. Anybody. So let's get into this conversation. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, the first time I thought about wedding planning, I was in my fashion merchandising class in high school, my senior year in high school. And I guess we just had a movie day and we were watching The Wedding Planner. And I was like, oh my gosh, this seems like such a cool job. It was Jennifer Lopez. And so that was the very first time I thought about wedding planning. I never really thought about it before then, but yeah.
That is so ironic. I took fashion merchandising too, and then we also had a wedding planning project as well in our class. So I was like, oh, I don't know. And I used to collect wedding planning books. I don't know why. I just every time I saw one, I was like, Mom, can I have it, please?
Yeah.
So I'm excited. So, I know you said it started in your fashion merchandising class, but what really drew you to say, okay, this is the route that I want to go? Did you just enjoy the process? Were you just drawn to the design aspect? What was it that made the light bulb go off?
Okay, so I worked in marketing and media. So my degree is in journalism and mass communication. I graduated from North Carolina A&T. And once I did an internship, I actually did an internship at BET in their creative services department in marketing. So that was like my first taste of like marketing and events. And so once I graduated, I started working for this mega church in Durham, North Carolina. And I started planning events for them. And I was working as a marketing and event coordinator there. And I mean, big things like concerts and talent shows, planning the Israel Houghton concert, talent shows where I had a partner with the local Radio 1. And, so I planned all types of events. But at that same time, I had friends who were getting married and who were having babies. And so they knew that I like to plan stuff. And so they were like, hey, will you help me plan my shower? Or I think I actually was a maid of honor in a wedding around that time that I was working that position. And so I planned like, the bachelorette trip and the bridal shower and all that good stuff. And I really enjoyed it. I was like, you know what? This is the fun stuff. So yeah, the design, that did draw me in, the planning the other types of events, the Harvest Fest events and those types of things. Those were fun too, but it was something about the weddings. And then I just got married, or either I was engaged around that time. I got married in 2012. And after my wedding, it kind of solidified it because I designed my wedding and planned it. And I had like it was like an old Hollywood theme. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, your wedding was so cute. Everything was like themed out. And, you should really do this as a business. And I was like, actually, I'm planning to. So that's how it started.
And that's amazing. I think it takes a special person to love what they do in the event space. And I love planning events myself, but it can be stressful. It can just be so much work involved. So what do you do to manage that stress? And then what sets you apart from other event planning services?
Well, so Avery, I stopped. My last wedding was actually last month, September. So I've moved into, yes, I did destination weddings. I did weddings for about 10 years, weddings and events. And so I made the decision last year, actually before last year, it was around 2016 where I started thinking like, oh, I want to do something different, something
Mhm.
that has a better impact, something that's a little bit more long lasting. And so I actually decided to stop wedding planning, and people ask me like, why'd you stop? And I tell them about this book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And I don't know if
Mhm.
you've heard of it, but there's in the book, he talks about there's different zones. And so there's like your zone of excellence, and then there's your zone of genius. And so in your zone of excellence, that's something that you are really good at and you can do it in your sleep. But were you born to do that? Is that your calling? Like, it might be something that you may be passionate about, but is that what, will you leave your mark on the world with that? And so I actually took B School. Marie Forleo, I don't know if you know who that is, but she has
Mhm.
something called B School. I took that last year during the pandemic. I was pregnant with my 3-year-old at home, my 1.5-year-old at home. So I'm working on this, and I had this like epiphany. And so I was like, this is not. I was working on B School with my wedding planning business, and I was like, this is not what I really want
Mhm.
to do. I want to do something that's going to make a difference. Well, in 2019, the year before, I had this idea of starting a HBCU kids clothing line that carried more than just a t-shirt or a onesie that would soon fade. I wanted something that would remind you of like a Gap Kids or a Justice for Girls or Limited Too, but for HBCUs. And so I had that idea in 2019. I was like, someone should do that. So I actually looked into the licensing process and got an application. Um, and like I like to tell people, the vision is for an appointed time. So at
Mhm.
that time, I have a vision, but it wasn't time for me to do it. So in 2020, when I was going through B School, and I started learning more about, your business should be something that can also give back in a way. And so I'm like, well, how am I giving back wedding planning? I mean, there are ways you are, but for me, it had become something that was more of a burden because once I became a mother, it's like, okay, I got to service people, and I had to be everything for everybody. And
Mhm.
so it became like a burden for me. And going through B School, I was like, I thought about starting that HBCU kids line. I want to see more Black and brown kids go to HBCUs, and so I woke up one morning last year in May, and I just popped up, and I was like, we were about to get stimulus checks, and I was like, we have to use those to start a business. We have to start this HBCU legacy business. I didn't have a name for it yet. We have to start this fashion line for kids. And my husband's like, half sleeping, he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I ran downstairs, and I was like, I need to find that application. The night before, my kids had been playing in my office and had papers all over the floor in my office. Do you know, Avery, when I walked downstairs, the first paper that was on top of that big pile of papers was that application. So
Wow.
it was like God was like, now or never. And remind you, I said the visions for an appointed time.
Mhm.
Last year it was the pandemic. There was social unrest, and in the Black community, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, all these things
Mhm.
happening, and it was almost like shining a light on Black people. And so all of a sudden people want to support Black people, they want to support Black businesses, all of a sudden they want to support HBCUs all of a sudden. So God gave me this vision, this idea in 2019, but he had me carry it out in 2020.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it was like the perfect time because people want to support Black businesses. They were giving out grants. I was applying for grants and getting them left and right for this business. So I was able to have my jackets manufactured. I'll show you a couple of them. So
Please.
here's
Oh,
one of
so
our
cute.
baggy jackets that has a removable hood. I know, I don't know if you can really see very
No,
well,
I
but
love it. I can
oh,
see, yeah.
HBC, yeah. So fashion.com. I'm a girly girl. So I definitely like sequins, and so my daughter, she's a
Yes.
girly girl too. Then we have something for the like um, like that, but for the Aggies, this one's gonna come. But yeah, and so it also has like a flip where it flips colors. So I was able to manufacture jackets and get that business started because of everybody wants to support Black people. So I often say that 2020 was like the gift and the curse for Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Definitely.
that's how I transitioned out of weddings into HBCU Legacy Fashion. But I still wanted to be able to share my knowledge with others as it relates to business. And I wanted to be able to give new and aspiring women, especially mothers, who were trying to like learn how to balance all of this, because I hear moms always ask like, how are you doing all of this? Like, you're super mom. Like, I am not super mom. I am stressed out. Don't look at Instagram and think, oh, it's so easy. It's not. So I started the podcast because I wanted to be able to have other business women come on and share their experiences for new and aspiring entrepreneurs. So I started Chelylaina Fultz Talk Show. I used to have people come up to me and ask me so many questions, and I was like, I should just put this in a podcast. So and I also remember when I first started in weddings in 2012, and nobody back then, it was like dog eat dog world. No one wanted to help anyone. They thought you were going to try to steal their business or take their clients.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, oh, community over competition, women's empowerment. I was always about that. Other people weren't back then. And so I remember getting like ghosted when I would try to reach out to wedding planners who I admired, and I just wanted to learn, because I wanted to see, like, is this for me? Is this business? Is this something I really want to do? Or am I getting caught up in the David Tatera shows, and am I getting caught up in that? You know, and so I remember reaching out to people. I remember one time I reached out to one wedding planner who really, we didn't have the same type of styles. Like, I was more like glam ballroom weddings. She was more like the rustic type of weddings. But I wanted to still learn from her because I knew she was in the industry. The location where I was located at the time, Raleigh, North Carolina, she was well known. And so I was like, well, I could probably learn from her. And I remember she was the only one who said, okay, yeah, I'll let you come to my studio and learn, and, you know, and we'll have coffee and talk. And I was like, I don't want anything from you. You don't have to pay me. I just want to shadow you. So I remember working this job that I hated. And that day I was so excited. So I was like, okay, I'm about to go meet with this lady. We're going to talk about weddings. I'm going to see if I can leave this job. This is going to be my thing. So it was like, I don't know, at the end of the day, maybe around 4:00 when I'm, you know, just getting pumped up about to leave. I get a text message from her and she's like, hey, I'm going to have to reschedule. And I'm like, okay. I was like, so when would you like to reschedule? Oh, I'll let you know. She never let me know. And it happened. So I remember thinking, like, nobody's going to help you do anything. Like, just do it yourself. So I ended up doing it myself. I didn't have the experience per se in wedding planning. I got certified through a company called the Bridal Society. And that was the start of me really knowing what I was doing as it related to weddings. I've always been very detail-oriented, type A. So I knew how to keep something organized. And also from a bride's perspective, I knew what I didn't like at my wedding when it came to the coordinator and how I could turn that around in my business. So the podcast is about teaching women who have overcome some type of opposition and have evolved into amazing entrepreneur, powerful leader, just having those types of women on to teach other women how to become that or how to grow their businesses.
That's amazing. And you mentioned quite a few gems that I hope the audience picked up on, especially the strongest one was, even though you didn't go with your vision at that moment for the HBCU Legacy Fashion, that it just because it was not right now, it didn't mean never. You had the idea, you probably wrote it down for a future idea. So it's really important to write down every single idea that you have, because you never know when you might come back to that idea. And then secondly, you weren't afraid to pivot, especially in the middle of a pandemic. That's really key. You weren't saying, okay, well, no, this is the comfortable lane that I should go with. You took the risk, you launched, and you went to this new business. So what advice do you have for women who might be scared of pivoting? They don't like what they're doing right now, but they are saying, okay, the money's coming in, this is consistent. What advice do you have for them?
So if you're a believer, first seek God and ask him and pray about that. Like, what should I do? What should the next step be? And he will definitely let you know. And sometimes people are like, well, how do you hear the voice of God? Is it like hearing a real voice? I'm like, no, it's more like you feel it. It's like you ask and then you get signs and confirmations. And for me, it comes into like 3 confirmations in some type of way. I've literally gotten signs on a billboard, like driving, and the words on the billboard was like an answer. So you just really need to be in tune with the spirit. That's number one. But also you need to write the vision and make it plain. So what is it that you want to do and why do you want to do it? Writing the vision is basically writing your business plan. It doesn't have to be a 30-page business plan, but you need to get your thoughts onto paper because that makes it come alive. And so if you're afraid to pivot, don't be because you could be in a spot right now that you need to get out of because it's someone else's opportunity that you are keeping them away from. So, like maybe you're staying in a job that you shouldn't be in, and maybe someone else has been praying, like, God, please open the door for this job. Like, this is a job, my dream job. And you're holding someone else away from their dream job because you won't follow your dream job. So think about it that way and just write the vision. You have to write it because once you really get it on paper, it makes it come alive, and you really will start to hold yourself accountable. You'll put dates beside it, and if you don't meet the date, you don't beat yourself up. You're still like, okay, well, I worked towards it, and that's a win. Writing out your wins, because sometimes we have lots of wins, but we don't write them out, and so we don't remember until someone says, "Oh, you did that." And I'm like, "Oh man, I did do that." Like,
Guilty.
yeah. So I'm guilty too because I forget to write them out. But I had a mindset coach who had me writing out all my wins, and I'm like, oh wow, I did all of this. And then I would tell her all my wins, and she would be typing it up, and then she would send me this paper, and I'd be like, oh my God, I did all of this stuff just this week. Like what? So,
Yeah.
but the other thing is, you definitely need to have a coach or be in some type of community where you can grow with other women who are like-minded or who would like to be where go get in a group where you would like to be where they're at. So I'm a part of different groups. I don't know if you know who Rachel Rogers is, but she has this group called We Should All Be Millionaires. I'm part of that, and I've met other schmillies is what they call them. That's a really good group. It's a good community, but it encourages you because you're like, wow, they're doing this. Like, let me set my game up, or let me, I would say that you definitely need a business coach. And that was something I learned last year to invest in myself and my business. And I think that's really one reason why I started to see so much growth. Because I never really properly, I have, but I've never really properly invested, like getting a business coach. And I did that. I did all those things, business coach, a mindset coach. And it's an investment, but you'll see the return on your investment because you're going to work so much better. You'll know what you're doing. So I hope that answered the question.
No, that did, definitely. And I'm glad that you really touched on investment and a coach because okay, I'm sure I would be somewhere. Yes, I'll be progressing, but I probably would not be as far along as I am now if I had not invested in the business coach at that time. I've actually invested in two, and then, of course, countless courses and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
And at that time, I was crying, I was stressed. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make this next payment, but it really was worth it. And so I really hope that the audience takes that to heart, that it is important to invest in someone. Yes, YouTube is great, but it won't give you
Yeah.
all of the steps that you really need to take your business to the next level. So I'm glad that you said that.
Especially because like you want someone to invest into your business and buy your product or your
Right.
services, but you've never invested in a business before. So
That's true. I
it's
say
like
that
how's
too.
this gonna work out for you?
Right. How can you expect someone to invest in you if you won't invest in yourself? That's really, really true.
I'll also tell you another biblical principle for me is sowing. I sow seeds and I reap harvests. Like I really, really I think in 2018 is when I really started to understand that concept of sowing financial seeds and reaping harvests because it was like I did it once and it was like, oh my gosh, everything I wrote down on this piece of paper, it sprouted up. And then I did it last year. I'll tell you this, and this is a little personal, but last year I was pregnant when during the pandemic. So my son just turned 1 October 3rd. And so I had a 1.5-year-old at the time. I'm 5 months pregnant, so I got up every day. I had my 3-year-old son, and I was not working. I wasn't working at all. Like my husband, was still working or whatever, but it was like down to like one income. And so for the first time ever in my life, before when I didn't have a job, I never applied for unemployment, but I was like, oh my gosh, I got to apply for it. So I applied for it and I took my $500 check and I sewed it into a lady who does she actually retired as a fashion VP for Justice for Girls, and so she has like 2 different locations, like her own clothing locations here in Columbus. Like she's in the mall, she has a store in the mall, and she has one like a standalone. And I gave her my $500 check. In no time, I had a $15,000 grant that I forgot to even apply for that popped up. And so God like blessed that like like a 30-fold. And I was like, look at God. And so every time I would get a grant, I would just keep sewing and sewing, and then another one will pop up. And so God's been good. When people ask me, how are you getting these grants? I apply and I sow seeds, and that's it. Like I'm not writing out nothing. I'm not getting a grant writer. I'm not writing anything, no long stories. I apply to the questions that I see, and I have seed in the ground, and it sprouts up. And that's just one of my biblical principles, whether you're a believer or not. Like it's a good principle, sowing and reaping. I will give the tip. I don't know if you've heard of Hello Alice.
I have.
Yes, that's where I find I'm on their mailing list. So I find those grants from Hello Alice. So anyone listening, you're a business owner, make sure you sign up, because that's where you're going to find the grant money.
That's true. And I often share with the Lady Mogul community, that's what I call it, Black Women Moguls, Hello Alice opportunities, and so many. So I wholeheartedly agree. It is a blessing to be a blessing to others.
Yes.
We can all win. We can still be in our lane, whatever lane that is, and expand and grow and still help others. It really is important to help us as a community to just go to the next level.
Right, because me helping you is not going to stop God's blessings for me. It's only going to amplify the blessings that He already has for me, because He knows that I'm a giver. And so even when I did wedding planning, like I said, it was like a dog eat dog world, and people, oh, you might get my client or this and another. I didn't care about that, because the clients that were supposed to be for me, I was going to get those clients. And if I had a client that wasn't supposed to be for me, I was going to have hell to work with them, because they weren't my clients in the first place. And you'd be upset that you wanted them so bad and made it happen for yourself. So I've never subscribed to that. I can't, help nobody else, because it doesn't work like that for me.
That's a whole word. Whole word. Now, transitioning just a little bit, I would love to talk about your HBCU experience at A&T, and then also your collaborative book with the HBCU Experience Movement. I always love hearing the stories of fellow HBCU alums, no matter what school they've been to. We are all family.
Where did you go to school?
Clark, Atlanta.
Okay.
Yes.
I love it.
So what was your experience like? And then what was it like to work on this book with other fellow alums?
Okay, so it was the best experience of my life. Like as you know, going to HBCU is amazing. I actually, when I was about 12 years old, I talk about this in the story, how my favorite uncle, he died when I was 15, but he asked me when he lived in New York, and I'm from North Carolina. And so he called one day and he was like asking, yeah, so what college do you want to go to? And I didn't really know much about A&T. I had some family members that went, but I just blurted out A&T. And he was like, why would you want to go there? Why do you want to go to a Black college? And so in my story, I explain how I believe that it was during the generation that he grew up in. And still today, a lot of Black people don't think an education from an HBCU will be equivalent or is enough to get a good job. And I talk about how if he was alive today, he would see just how wrong he was. But knowing my uncle, he wouldn't admit it, And so I talk about that in the book. My experience at A&T was amazing. Like, the professors are like your aunties and your uncles, and they love you. They actually care about you and call you by name, and they tell you to say your name proudly. And, I was a journalism major. And so I was in the NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists. And so, they made sure that we were proud of who we were, and that we, that we didn't take shortcuts. I remember talking to one of my professors, because I actually was going to graduate a semester early. I did some college courses in high school that transferred over. And I remember telling her, like, it was 2008, so the economy was bad. And I was like, I think I'm just going to go to graduate school. And we were talking about Terrence J, because he is an Aggie, and, everyone knows that he's done great things in media. And so she's like, well, she was obviously one of his former professors as well, Miss Tompkins. she was like, well, we were talking about, she's like, well, Terrence J didn't need a plan B. Why do you need a plan B? He just worked. He just did it. And I was like, oh, dang. Well, I didn't take that advice right away. I still went to grad school because I did send out my resume tape to all these places and I didn't get any. 2008 economy was down, nobody was hiring. And so I did go, but like years later now, I'm like, I'm podcasting, I'm emceeing events and hosting, and I'm doing all those things, and maybe in not the cookie cutter way that I thought I would do it as a news reporter, but I'm doing it today. And I'm thankful for her advice. And also another professor, Dr. Stiles, she told us about blogging back in 2006. And I didn't know what blogging, none of us knew what blogging was. We were like, she said, there's this new thing coming out called blogging, and you guys need to jump on it. These are the type of professors that we had at A&T and at HBCUs, period. Ones who cared, who wanted you to, jump on things before they got too popular so you could blow up. And so I remember it wasn't until probably like 2000, somewhere around maybe 2013, 14, 15, when I started like blogging, wedding blogging. And I thought back to Dr. Stiles telling us about blogging in 2006. And the blogging like grew my Instagram and grew my client base and everything. And I was like, well, thanks, Miss, Dr. Stiles. So, and then of course I joined the first and finest sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and I met some of my best friends, some of my lifelong sisters, and that in itself was an amazing experience. My husband, I met him at A&T. We didn't date at A&T, but I met him my sophomore year. He was actually graduating, and we met again like 3 years later. But I can only imagine, like, what would, if I didn't go to A&T, I have these 3 beautiful kids that I have today, but I have this same hustle, like, things would my life be different. So A&T was a great experience, and I encourage all of us, Black and brown students, hey, and it's not only, you can be white and come too, or another race, but they're important today still. They served their purpose in the back in the day, and they still serve a purpose today. So, and I just tell people, like, it's going to be something. You'll always have a family. There's always an Aggie somewhere. And I have friends who've opened doors for me who were Aggies. I've had friends who had doors open for them when they was starting, out in their career. They didn't have much experience, but because someone saw North Carolina A&T on their resume, they got the job and they were able to grow in their career. So there's always a family. Even with other HBCUs, you can see another HBC. It's like there's this meme that goes around, or a joke that says, we can talk about each other, but y'all can't talk about us.
Yes, I know that one.
Or your brother talking about your mom, but nobody else better talk about your mama. So we're all a family. Big HBCU. So true. Yes, it was great. So to answer your question about writing, it was great. With Dr. Ashley Little, we actually were at A&T the same time, and so she's one of my fans because she crossed Delta the year I crossed AKA, and so it was a good experience writing the book, and it just took me back. I had so many memories, and I thought, like, man, I'm like an author now. Like, I always liked writing, but I don't know if I ever thought I would become an author, or maybe not so soon. When I was a kid, I used to enter into writing contests, and I remember winning, like, in 3rd grade, like local, state, and district, or like local, district, and state for a writing competition for a book that I wrote. And so and I had to go for this award ceremony and stuff. And so it's crazy how that was when I was 8 years old. I'm 34 years old today, and I'm a part of this book now. So writing has definitely always been a part of me.
That's amazing. And the book, is it out or is it coming out still?
It comes out this month. And yes, on Amazon. I believe there will be an announcement coming up soon. But yes, definitely this month. I know homecoming is next week, so it could be coming out around that time. But A&T's homecoming is next Saturday. So.
And I always love hearing the experiences of other HBCU alums. It's always a kindred spirit. And you're right, you can't talk about HBCUs if you're outside of the community. We can rival with each other, but at the end of the day, we're a family. And I always, it's so funny, whenever I'm driving or riding in the car, whenever I see a Clark Atlanta license plate or a Grambling license plate, I'm like, hey, HBCU. Of course, they
I
can't hear me, but
know.
you still have that just a feeling of warmth. And it's just it's like, it's an experience like none other. I would
That's
go back
true.
in a heartbeat.
Yes, I was actually at my kids' preschool. It goes up to 8th grade, so the middle schoolers were having a career day, so I was there. I set up my table for HBCU Legacy Fashion, and this was like maybe 3 weeks ago. And I'm going through the pamphlet of all the people who are represented there. They're all parents, and I'm looking through, and this lady, it says she went to North Carolina Central University. And I'm like, oh my God. First of all, that's our biggest rivalry school. But I was so excited when I saw her. So I had to go find her. And I found out she's one of my sorors. I'm like, what? And she's from North Carolina and went to Ohio years ago. So I was like, what a small world. It's all HBCU love.
It is definitely. Now, I always hate when our segments come to a close, but for the final question, what lasting impression do you want to leave on those who interact with you? And also, how can we keep up with you in your journey?
Oh, wow. I want people to know that when they see me, that they feel empowered, they feel inspired, they see grace, and they see compassion, and they see empathy. And I want people to know that they can go after their dreams, that, give it all you got, but don't beat yourself up if you feel like you've done everything and you don't see your harvest yet, because it's coming. So I always say I did my best, and my best was good enough. So that's my motto. Because when I do something, I'm definitely gonna give 100%. And if I give 100%, I know that I did good enough. But you can follow me on Instagram at Chelylaina Fultz. My name is up there. It's just my name. My business is HBCULegacyFashion.com. You can also find us on Instagram at HBCU Legacy Fashion, or Facebook. It's all HBCU Legacy Fashion. We will be a vendor for North Carolina A&T's homecoming next week, a virtual vendor. So that's going to be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of next week, October 28th, 29th, and 30th. So you can always come in and shop. There's a hop-in platform that they're going to have, so you can shop there. But you can always go to HBCULegacyFashion.com and shop, and or just get on my mailing list, or just send me a message and tell me hi and what school you went to, and if you want some apparel for your college, because we are licensed for 21 schools. And yeah, so that's how you can find me.
I just want to say congratulations to you for pivoting and following your dreams and being a role model for others who look up to you. It is really just an amazing thing just to see how businesses evolve. And I know you will continue to evolve in your purpose. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you again for having me, Avery.
Well, ladies, this has been another segment of Lady Mogul Talk, and we will see you in the next segment. Bye.